Stay with us, everyone. You're watching What Now? Let's now turn our attention to Sudan. What is believed to be the world's worst humanitarian crisis has driven more than 14 million people from their homes in Sudan as a result of fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The United States says it is working with both sides to secure a humanitarian truce. This follows a sharp escalation in bloodshed in the conflict after RSF fighters captured the North Darfur region's capital, El Fasher, following an 18-month siege. Washington's senior advisor for Arab and African affairs to the U.S. government, Massad Boulos, says America is determined to end the bloodshed. He explained that the U.S. came up with a proposal, gave it to both sides to consider, and it is working with both sides to finalize it. Mr. Massad Boulos also added that the U.S. proposed timeline starts with a 3-month humanitarian truce and a 9-month political process. The United Nations says more than 40,000 people have been killed in the long-standing war. For more on the humanitarian crisis and the long-standing conflict in Sudan, public affairs analyst David Bole joins me on What Now. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining me.
Thank you very much, Precious. It's always a delight.
Let me just start by getting your thoughts on the brutal impact of this war on civilians so far, and just the idea that Sudan has been ignored or is being ignored.
Fundamentally, it is a sad thing to note that Africa, one of the richest and strongest continents on earth today, is being brought to her knees by a series of crises. I have been on this call watching the Nigerian situation, and the analyst that just left speaking on the Nigerian side of this whole issue. And now we are focusing on Sudan, another community under threat. The Sudan case or the Sudan crisis dates back to the 80s, and the wars, the divide between the North and the South, the North predominantly Islamic and the South predominantly Christian, has led to a lot of bloodshed and displacement of people. Up to the referendum that granted cessation to South Sudan in 2011, Sudan has been a country of pain and a country of blood. Then the recent resurgence of violence following the ouster of al-Bashir, and then the interim government that was put in place that was later dissolved in a military coup. There's this military coup in 2021, and then the recent eruption of violence between the Sudan armed forces and then the rapid support forces. It has caused a grave humanitarian crisis, within the Sudanese region. Statistics has it that 64% of the population of Sudan, that's 28.4 million people, are experiencing acute food insecurity right now, with about 8 million of them on emergency. And if you dig further, you discover that the most impacted of these are actually women and children. The recent capture of that particular El Fasher in Darfur by the RSF, you see that a lot of humanitarian crisis in terms of human rights abuse was alleged, especially in the killing of 450 people, mostly civilians, in a hospital in El Fasher in Darfur. You see, this is a grave situation that calls for international response, immediate international response, so that that crisis can be stemmed and then relief can also come to that nation. And the worst,
Dave, if I may comment quickly because of time, you were talking about a call for international response, and that has been the major frustration for a lot of people in terms of the silence from the international community. But now the U.S. is responding. They have a proposal to end the war. There's also a call for a 9-month truce. Every attempt to broker peace has failed, and I'm just wondering what you make of this new proposal by the U.S. and if you see any hope.
You see, there is hope in the sense that it has to take a big brother like U.S. to wade into that kind of crisis to be able to create a platform, an environment that fertilizes a truce. My hope or my optimism is premised in what happened between Israel and the Palestinian people of Gaza. When US waded in, we saw that there was a rapid, a speed up towards a truce, and then the return of the hostages, and then a measure of cessation of violence on the part of both the Palestinians and then the IDF. So I am hopeful that with this proposal for a truce, anchored by the US, both parties, the SAF and the RSF, will be able to sit together and see that there is cessation of violence. But currently, the UNHCR is very, very concerned because of the hostile terrain. There is hardly a distribution of food and also distribution of medicine. A lot of the children are out of school. A lot of the women are impacted in terms of rape, disease, and all sorts of stuff. Mind you, Sudan at a point had the second highest refugee population in the world. That was 1 million. But today we're talking about 13 million people displaced from their homes. That's a grave crisis that should attract global attention and also global superpowers in terms of bringing it to a close. So Sudan occupies a very, very prominent position as far as world mineral supply is concerned. A host of the uranium that is used by the global 20 nations today is gotten from Sudan. Sudan.
Absolutely.
So a country of that sort, we accept that Africa's
Dave,
wars,
if not just for the minerals, for the number of children who are dying, of malnutrition, it should attract global attention. But I'm afraid we do have to leave the conversation there. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Public Affairs Analyst David Boulos.
Thank you very much.